Hello, everyone. It's Thursday, the 24th of September. We're recording this. This is Bear in Mind's Games Chat, just covering some of the events of the previous week and a bit since we did the last one. It's been a bit of an eventful one, hasn't it, James?
Yeah, a lot's happened.
Yeah, we've got a guest with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Connor. I'm on Mild Fuzz TV's podcasts and play a lot of games.
Cool. Yeah, Connor's one of our friends from a nerdy online group that we frequent. So he's got some interesting perspectives on things that are going on the new console launches and things. So we thought we'd get him along to join us this week. Excuse me. To start with, then we will start with the Sony event last week. Any thoughts, James? We'll start with you.
It was fine.
Yeah.
We got prices.
That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it feels so long ago, doesn't it?
It does, actually, doesn't it? Yeah.
They matched the Series X at the top end.
Yep.
And
slight surprise, I guess.
Yeah. And they 100 more than the Series S with a discless, which was expected, I think.
100 more in the States, and it was 110 more in the UK. Yeah.
It was never going to be as cheap as the Series S.
Oh no, it couldn't be, and they're taking quite a large loss on that already. I think it's $20 to $25 is all they actually save by taking out the disk drive.
Yeah,
so, quite a big hit for them to take 100.
Well, I mean, like the rumored price for them, as far as cost price goes, was $450 for the disc version. So it's so therefore probably no less than $425 for the discless. So including shipping, the boxes, retail cut, etc. They're potentially losing $50 or $60 per console on that. However, obviously, it being a digital-only one, the sales of games are going to come exclusively from the Sony store.
They get a higher percentage. I did see someone work out the maths on that, where they have to sell 6 games digitally that you would have bought physically for them to break even just on that $100 difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll take a while for them to recoup the costs, I thought.
I mean, it'll take a while to recoup. I think, obviously, something we'll probably cover a bit more in depth as we go on. Sony do have the abundance of exclusives that people are going to buy. Obviously, they're not doing a Game Pass as such.
They announced their PS Plus collection.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll cover that in a bit. But they'll have the exclusives that a good chunk of people will buy at some point. Obviously, the new price point on them is $70 in the States, so they'll have that tiny bit of extra margin.
Somehow that's £70 in the UK.
I think is it actually going to retail at £70?
Yeah. Well, yes.
If you look on Amazon right now, they're £70.
That's if you get the digital version, though. I assume.
Well, no, physical. Physical on Amazon is 70.
Yeah. I mean, it won't be long before physical
drops a bit. Yeah,
it's dropping a bit. As it is the case now. Like, it's still a case, really, if you can get into a shop, even if it's just a few quid. And
I don't think you'll ever get it cheaper somewhere like Game or HMV. But if you go to your local supermarket, they'll probably shave a tenner off.
Yeah.
So you're talking paying 60 instead of a 50 you currently are.
I think one thing Sony have been quite good with in the PS4 generation, actually, though, is dropping the price relatively quickly. That give it 6 or 12 months, and there's usually a decent deal in the PS Plus summer sale or something like that. So
there's definitely been some that have only been 3 months as well. I think Days Gone was only 3 months before that first took its cut.
Yeah, so
I think it depends on how well they think it'll carry on.
Yeah,
selling at full price.
I mean, it's an odd one, isn't it? Because obviously some of the big ones, like say a God of War, that sold so well that I think they were confident enough. We've made our money. We might as well put a price drop on it. And then of course you've got things like Days Gone, which was the other way round, where you've got it didn't necessarily sell that well, so they need to tempt some people in to kind of recoup some of those costs.
Yeah.
But then that's quite a long tail on it.
You can make get God of War for like a tenner these days.
It's they put it in their, what do they call it, PlayStation Hits collection, where I think they're like £16 officially, but then they go on sale down to, like, say, I think it's like 11 quid right now in the sale that they've just had on.
Yeah,
which, considering it's only a 2-year-old game, like it was 2018, like, and late 2018 as well. Was it late? No, it was early 2018, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Spider-Man. It was late 2018. Yeah. But even so, I mean, it's a two and a bit year old game, and it's already down to like potentially as little as 11 quid. Like that's not bad. So I mean, obviously, it means that there are ways of you not having to spend that £70 in the future.
Just as long as you're willing to wait.
Sorry?
As long as you're willing to wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are. I mean, obviously, the people who've like early adopted, I haven't. I can't afford to at the moment, but the people who've early adopted, that I always think that if you do, as long as the console is a decent build quality, and you look after the console, I always like early adoption, because actually you're getting really good value for money over its lifespan, especially with current console cycles. You're looking at 6 or 7 years now instead of the 4 or 5 years it used to be. So that 500 quid out of the gate now is going to get you 6 or 7 years gaming if you're careful with it. And that's actually quite a bargain, really, especially when you look at how costly getting an up-to-date PC would be or something like that. So I don't have an issue with that. Did either of you pre-order?
I've got a PS5 pre-ordered.
I tentatively have both pre-ordered.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to keep the Xbox One for certain, and I've been saying, well, if I get a job in the next week or two, I've got some redundancy money left over then, and I'll have both. Which is why I pre-order. I got the choice then. I can just cancel one. I mean, I probably shouldn't be buying either, really, but I'm a sucker, so.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I didn't, as I say. I mean, I think at the point of the PlayStation launch, I hadn't got a job. I had an interview for a job. I've now got one, but I haven't started it yet. I am certainly more of a PlayStation man than I'm an Xbox man. However, saying that, the Series S is, especially with All Access, is something that I am very, very tempted with. Because for those few Xbox games that I actually do want to play, and the odd third-party game that make it to Xbox Game Pass, it's an incredible deal. It's more than powerful enough to keep me happy, because
especially if you don't care about 4K gaming.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's 1440 with a decent upscaler. So and that's all I need. It's what I've been playing for the last 2 or whatever years with.
If you've got like a
4 Pro.
Series X or a PS4 Pro, sorry, One X.
Yeah.
I'm not the first to do that, I'm sure. That's what all their 4K is a bit. It's 1440 checkerboarded up.
Yeah. I mean, this might not be checkerboard. It might be. I always forget what it's called, but there's a system on PC games that is instead of checkerboarding, and it does it better than checkerboarding.
The DLSS.
I think it's the DLSS, yeah. And I've watched a few Digital Foundry videos on it, and it's remarkable when it's done correctly. They can even upscale from 540p to 4K, and it isn't as shit as it sounds. Like, it actually works. So like there's some magic going on underneath the bonnet there, that again, I mean, for someone who isn't an Xbox fan, but there's a handful of Xbox games that wants to play, I'm not asked if I don't get the full 4K master experience. Just, you know, especially as, let's face it, there's very few true 4K Xbox exclusive games out there at the moment anyway. And the one that I do want, Forza Horizon 4, which is getting a next gen upgrade anyway. So yeah,
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Is it a free next gen upgrade?
It'll be on Game Pass.
It is a free next gen upgrade, James. Yes. So if you want to steer the direction of the conversation towards,
that's a conversation for a little bit later. Yeah. While we're on a PlayStation event, we got gameplay footage for Miles.
Yep.
A lot of QuickTime footage for Miles.
It looks exactly like the Spider-Man reveal gameplays.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a good game, but all the reveal footage was, here's the big QTE events, and look at, I think it was like a building falling down or something in the original Spider-Man one, and this one's the bridge. It's functionally the same, but I mean, it's a good game. So
the footage walking through the market was stunning.
They really wanted to show off those ray tracing and all the gorgeous lighting. The different color, the blue and the red lights. Looks great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like Insomniac's artistic style, forgetting the Resistance games, obviously, but for the most part, is all about color. And I think having essentially two launch titles, because Ratchet and Clank is launch window, so it's probably by March.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
I think, it's got to be by March, because obviously the end of fiscal year, so they'll want another big-ish release by then, especially if they've got to get Horizon and God of War out by the end of next year as well. And obviously there's a couple of other things. So, but yeah, I think their artistic style really lends itself to showing off ray tracing to make it look pretty. Because I think obviously you could have incredible ray tracing in a fairly bland looking game and not necessarily notice it. Whereas this, obviously, it really was a feast for the eyes. As far as the gameplay itself, I don't have an issue with it. Again, I watched the Digital Foundry review of the Sony event, and they were just marveling at the technical masterpiece that it is to actually seamlessly put these elements together of QuickTime events straight into real-time action, straight into cutscenes and so on and so on. Like actually doing that and doing it seamlessly so that you don't notice the difference or don't notice where it's changing. Apparently is incredibly hard. So like,
very few games managed it on this current gen. God of War actually stands out as something that did do that, because it did the over the shoulder thing, and every so often it would just move and you'd be, I'm in a cutscene now, and you wouldn't necessarily realize going into it.
Obviously it's something that Naughty Dog are famous for doing as well, but I think it still takes a great amount of skill to make it as seamless and keep it dynamic. Because
we
go on, James.
We got Final Fantasy 16 announced as a PS5 console exclusive, but coming to PC.
Maybe,
yeah.
They were asked about that afterwards, because there was a few other coming to PC flubs, which I'm sure we'll mention. They were asked about this one, and they were like, "Well, we don't know what it's coming to." And I'm like, "You said it was coming to PC. It's fine. Just say it's coming to PC. You're not losing that many sales. It's different audiences for the most part."
Yeah, and I would say the majority of Final Fantasy's audience is probably gonna get a PS5.
One of my best friends, literally said to me before this, showcase came out. I was like, "So, what do you think they're getting?" Because we had a lot of the Xbox news at this point, and I was like, it's really great value for once. He goes, "Yeah, it is, but Final Fantasy's on PS5 without even knowing anything officially, because obviously we're expecting Remake Part 2 to be on there as well, or at least to have the timed exclusivity. So he was like, so it doesn't matter what Xbox does. He's getting the PS5 first because of Final Fantasy, and I'm sure he's not the only one.
I mean, the trailer looked good.
It spoke to me in a way that Final Fantasy doesn't usually. It was very dour European British fantasy meets Final Fantasy.
You describe it as Dragon Age-esque.
Yeah, I saw some people use Witcher as well, but and I get it. It's all kind of in that same vein of fantasy.
It still feels
definitely more of a Western RPG in its aesthetics. I think there's definitely still some Japanese and
absolutely full of Final Fantasy imagery.
It was really clear, like from the off, like, oh, this is Final Fantasy. There was no doubt in my mind. I didn't need. You didn't need to wait for them to reveal it. You see the what the little bird's called, for example.
Chocobos.
Thank you, Choco. Yeah, it's like, okay, I know what this is, and it's recognizably Final Fantasy, but it's different. Which I mean, I like that.
I think that's the thing with Final Fantasy though, that because then they're very rarely true sequels to each other, that they do have that built-in ability to do whatever the hell they want. So if they do feel that Western RPGs, like a Witcher or something like that, are becoming popular at the moment, let's change the setting a little bit. Let's make the aesthetics look a little bit more. If it
doesn't sell as well, if it doesn't, if people don't respond to it as much, oh well, we tried. Go back to something else next time.
I'm
exactly
very excited for return to fantasy.
Yeah.
I like the futuristic Final Fantasies, but I really like the fantasy Final Fantasies.
I've not played enough of them. I've dabbled in a couple. Obviously, I played Remake earlier this year. Loved it. It's the first Final Fantasy I've completed. Absolutely loved it. Kind of just completely fell into it, and it took me like a week. But before that, I've dabbled with 13, Type 0, 10. I tried the original 7. I've dabbled here or there, but I've never got more than a dozen hours in.
Yeah,
same. But then I think for me, to be perfectly honest, it's just not they're not my type of games really. I'm not really a traditional RPG or JRPG kind of guy.
It looks like we're stepping even closer to action with this one.
Yeah. It looked like another refinement on what we had in Remake with the battle system, which was itself a refinement on 15.
Well, this is the 14 team making this one.
Yeah, which I mean, people love it because obviously 14 is the online one, right?
And people love it.
People love the storytelling in it in particular. They say it's potentially the best story in all of Final Fantasy, which has me quite excited as a fan of stories.
And that's being told in a genre that doesn't tend to usually lend itself to deep storytelling.
It lends itself to amazing cutscenes at the start of your story, and then nothing is how most MMOs play, in my experience.
Yeah, I think it's like a world builder type of thing usually, isn't it? Where there's nice little nuggets in the environment, but it isn't necessarily a strict plot-based story. It's more of a story as a world rather than story as a through line. So. But,
which I guess is how you could describe the Souls games.
Yeah. So nice, smooth move there. Demon Souls. We saw some more footage of that. Actual in-game footage.
Everyone went nuts for how pretty it looks, and I don't see it. I just don't see it.
I think it looks fantastic, which I think is a shame because I hate how all the Souls games play. I think they're so slow and clunky, and every time it fools me. I'll be like, "Oh, I'll try this one. Maybe they've changed." Even to the point when they did the Dark Souls remake, whichever one you want to count it as. I was like, "Oh, I'll give it another try." And then 10 minutes in, I'm like, "No, I hate this still every time."
Yeah,
but it's a ton of grey on grey. I just don't get it.
It's visually impressive textures, the lighting of because obviously they have the spotlight effect from your character, that does interact with the environment really nicely. There's a lot of really nice fire effects and glows. So it is a lot of grey, but the lighting on it makes it stand out, I think.
Sorry, go on, James.
I did play Demon Souls back in the day. I'm just not good enough to play it.
Same. I think what really hammered home for me, because I was a bit like you, James, in that, like, when I watched the initial stream of it anyway, which obviously was more compressed than watching a decent trailer, like the standalone trailer for it. But I was a little underwhelmed with how it looked. But then seeing the video or some screenshots side by side of the original game in that particular bit that's in the gameplay trailer versus the current gameplay trailer, it was staggering. Because I remember the original Demon Souls actually looking quite impressive. Because obviously it was an early-ish PS3 game.
I didn't realize how old it was.
Yeah.
And it like, compared to what we saw the other day, it looks like a top-end PS2 game rather than what we came to think of as a PS3 game. So like that, yeah, the leap is stunning. I think we'll make a little jump ahead in the schedule, and we'll mention the purchase of Bethesda. I wonder, with that and Obsidian now in Microsoft's bank, if if Sony are actually going to take the plunge and buy Bluepoint outright now, because they obviously seem like the right choice to be their in-house RPG team.
Even before that, I think it was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
I think this might have solidified it, though. I mean, obviously they're getting the exclusive or semi-exclusive or timed exclusives with Square Enix. They've got that Project Athia coming as well, but which, to be honest, will probably come out on the PlayStation 7 with how slow Square Enix are at developing things.
That was it when Final Fantasy 16 was announced. I was like, all right, we'll see it in like 5 years then.
It looks further on than I think.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, I think it was Jason Schreier who said he's spoken to them and they're not planning on showing anything more until sometime next year. But maybe expect it sometime in 2022, 23 at a push. It is more playable than usual for when Square announces things.
Which is fair enough.
The question is, what do we see first? 7 Remake 2 or 16?
I think if 16 is going to be ready for early 2022, then they might as well push back 7 Remake 2, because then you can have a nice kind of... You can have your slightly old school fantasy, and then you can have your future fantasy again when 7-2 comes out. And then obviously after that, in theory, it'd be Project Athia.
7-2 only just entered full production in July, they said.
Yeah, so it'll be
a few years, yeah. But at the same time, they're working on pretty much the same framework. The engine, it's already built. Assets are all there from the first one, so it should be a quicker cycle in theory.
I honestly would not be surprised to see that project span a generation or two.
Yeah. Has anyone put any bets yet on how many parts they're going to make it?
They should just do 3, I think.
It's going to be more than that, surely. I thought part 1 was only like the first
20 minutes of the original.
It was like the first 4 hours or something. Before it came out, I was like, I could, because I'd played that part of 7 before. I was, I'll do a refresher, and I think I knocked out that whole first section in 4 or 5 hours in one night. They
fleshed it out heavily.
Yeah. They did, but from what I'm aware of with the game, obviously it opens up after Midgard, but it actually leaves them less to flesh out because it's already more fleshed out in the original anyway. So it might be a case of they could do it in just 1 or 2 more parts and have it be a little bit longer.
But going into spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake here, for anyone watching at home who doesn't want to know.
Yeah, who hasn't played a game that came out in '97 and then
Well, no,
came out
that's-
No, this is different. I know what he's going out with this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
The End remake of a very clear line of time has changed. This could be something completely different to what you remember.
Yeah, it's more of a reimagining, a retelling than a remake at this point.
It's a DC Crisis style reboot.
It kind of is. It's more of an adaptation of its own story.
Which is fair enough. I mean, like, if you're going to do it, like, why the hell not?
Something new.
Yeah, I mean, because you either do it like Konami, no, not Konami, Capcom's done with the Resident Evils, where you do very faithful but incredibly well done, almost straight remakes, or why not do a reimagining? Like, there's so much more technology, and gaming has moved on so much more. It's only like in the film industry, like say the difference between an early King Kong and the things that have come after it, that excuse me, that naturally a film would be different. So why not with a game? Why not play it up and freshen it up a little bit?
Well, there's two thoughts I have on it. Sephiroth is not. He's the Sephiroth from the original game.
Seemingly, yeah.
Having kind of come back in.
Well, at least he's aware, or he's seen the original timeline if he's not the same one.
And I'm not convinced Aerith is dying this time round.
No, I'm not either. And that's something I don't think I like, because, don't get me wrong, it's I get why people don't want their favorite characters to die, but to just undo it like that feels of we'll let you keep having it. It feels like pandering a little bit, doesn't it?
I don't know if it does, if this is a sequel as much as it is a remake.
Yeah, I guess.
It's interesting anyway.
Someone's got to die.
Cloud.
I'd be okay with that.
Maybe you have to choose.
That would be cool. But
Square don't tend to do a lot of
Square's not big on choice.
RPGs, do they?
But maybe, well, I mean, it might not be a physical choice. It might just be a case of a bit like maybe the Mass Effect 2 final mission thing, where if you don't choose the right loadout of what you're going to do, then different
you
people
all
die
die
at the end.
Yeah.
So maybe you all die. Maybe that's the twist.
You lose.
Yeah.
So the event ended with God of War Ragnarok.
Well, did it?
Well, yeah, it was announced.
Yeah. I mean, considering it's meant to be out next year, it was obviously a last-minute decision to put it in. I think because they hadn't even got a trailer ready.
There's no chance it's coming out next year. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love it to, and I've been saying, if I don't end up getting a PS5 at launch with the Xbox, then I'll probably just wait until God of War comes out, because that's the first game where I'm like, no, I need to play that. But I can't see it not being delayed at this point.
Unless, of course, it's a bit like Miles Morales and it isn't a true sequel.
No, I think it is, because this is what they kind of teased in the post credits of the first one. This is very much the next one, I think.
Well, there is a rumor that both Horizon and God of War are not full games.
You see, I'm not sure. I don't think Horizon is a full game. I've been thinking about it. I've been especially with it being on PS4 as well. And I think potentially Forbidden West is a bit more like Frozen Wilds. It might be a bigger Frozen Wilds. I think it's not going to be short as Frozen
They are
Wilds,
selling them to us as they are full games.
They are, and like Miles, it was clear from the start wasn't, and they kind of admitted that pretty quickly. I think God of War is more likely to be shorter than Horizon. I think Horizon's been in development for so long. I mean, that one came out 2016, 2017. The first one came out
2017. Because it was the week before Breath of the Wild.
It was, yes. And I think So that's enough dev time where, I can see it. And ultimately, there's just too many units of the PS4 out there that they don't want to pass up on those sales. I mean, I can see God of War coming to PS4 as well because so many units.
I mean, the only thing that kind of pushes me in that direction, and I think it's going to be a big add-on. I don't think it's going to be like as small as Frozen Wilds is. I think it's probably going to be a good 20+ hour add-on, which, Horizon, if you mainlined it, like absolutely fucking went for it. Sorry, that's the first F in Bear in Mind history. If you absolutely went for it, it was like a 45-hour game. If you platinumed it, I got one of my rare platinums. It was a 100-hour game comfortably to get everything. And I think so if they can do a 25-hour like add-on, I suppose, a semi-sequel, because obviously they have talked about the fact that there might be a multiplayer element, that they're trying to put in a multiplayer element to the next Horizon. So it might be that Forbidden West starts to introduce that multiplayer element for a true sequel, so that people get used to it in the same way that Ground Zeroes did, introduced the new Metal Gear system for. I
think it's more of like a prologue game.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily an add-on to Horizon 1, but a prologue to Horizon 2, if you know what I mean.
It could be. I have to say though, I'd be quite a fan of more games being shorter, and I don't mean like 4 hours, but I mean 20 hours is still a pretty reasonable length for a game.
I mean, I think with Sony making so many open world games as well, potentially actually doing almost episodic things rather than full sequels, so that they slowly just flesh the map out and make it bigger. Especially in the case of, say, Horizon, where maybe there is going to be like a multiplayer element as well, where you have that massive original map plus Frozen Wilds plus whatever's in the Forbidden West and how big that is. That maybe having once every 18 months or what have you, for a game the scale of Horizon, having a new 20-hour storyline with a bit of map expansion makes sense, because it's less pressure in a way for the devs. They can get more games out on a quicker basis, especially if they're going to be coming out at 50 quid instead of 70 quid. That like 25 hours for 50 quid is still perfectly fine. Like that is great. I mean, especially when you can compare it to Call of Duty, which the main campaign for a Call of Duty is 4 hours. It's
a little bit longer than that.
Depends
I've played them
one.
all. I think the shortest one still took about 5 or 6.
Yeah, but I mean,
they're usually about 8 or 10 hours, I think.
I think you could.
To be fair, Connor's played a lot more cards than me or you have.
I just played through the Modern Warfare, the 2019 campaign just a week or two ago, and that took about 8 hours.
I think it was Modern Warfare 3. Like a mate of mine managed to nail it in 3 hours.
I mean, you can do anything. I mean, I've done the Batman Arkham City in 3 hours. So if you really want to get it done quick, you can, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But normal playing, about 6 to 8.
Even so, I mean, if you're happy to spend 70 on that, and I know there's a massive multiplayer.
That's what people are paying.
That's really what they're paying for. But I mean, considering the cost that goes into the production of that 8-hour thing for Call of Duty, like for story fans like myself, the perceived value of a 25-hour Horizon campaign compared to a 6 to 8 hour Call of Duty campaign, that's more than good enough for me.
I get where that's coming from. I used to be a person who was like, no, if a game's less than 30 hours, I wasn't interested. I was like, that's not enough value. Now I think I'm so busy in general that I appreciate my time in other ways as well. So like one of the best surprise games recently that I played at the start of the year was Titanfall 2, and that's probably only 8 hours maybe.
Yeah.
But it's hands down one of the best games I played this year. Like it's well worth all the money.
Of course, this is coming from someone who
slept on
loves
that.
the Force Awakens games, and the second one of that you can do in 2.5 hours. So yeah. But anyway, so is there anything on either system game wise that you're actually particularly looking forward to? Either of you?
Before moving on to that, can we just say how weird the flow of information was from this event? That it all came from Jeff Keighley.
It was a
came
mess.
From Jeff Keighley.
It was. I don't understand why. Why did they bother holding this event to tell us the price, but not tell us that pre-orders were going live? What should have been 12 hours later, what in reality was 3 hours later, and then to all sorts of other information that we got from Keighley afterwards.
Amazon went early.
No, Amazon.
No, it was Walmart. Walmart that went early.
Oh, it was Walmart, yeah. Because didn't they just put out, like, we're going to go now.
Yeah, and then everyone scrambled. Apparently Sony sent out an email going, once Walmart had done this, Sony was just like, well, you might as well.
Yeah.
Apparently Walmart tweeted pre-orders live tomorrow, but why wait? And put them live.
Yeah.
Which feels like there's some passive-aggressive issues going on between Sony and Walmart there.
No, it's just Walmart. They've just got they have such dominance in games retail in the States that it was very much we're just gonna go.
It's one of those things where officially, legally, there's no embargo for them to do that once they've bought their stock, and as long as they don't give it to you before the on sale date, they can pre-sell it whenever. So there's no legal reason why they can't. Which makes me does make me think that there's something going on between them and Sony, in terms of the communication issues, that maybe Walmart got a bit fed up because why not just wait otherwise? It felt like they wanted to spite Sony, to be like, no, you've kind of dicked us around here and barely given us any notice. You kind of treated us shitty, so screw you.
Well, this segues us into pre-orders. We were going to discuss pre-orders anyway.
Sieg? Do you mean Segway?
It's spelt Sieg. A Segway is a scooter. We've had this conversation before.
I know, and we'll have the conversation again.
I refuse to pronounce it correctly.
Pronounce, yeah. It does segue into pre-order madness. Because obviously PlayStation, we've just touched on it, but PlayStation had an interesting first 24 hours of pre-orders, shall we say?
Well, I pre-ordered with a game, UK game retailer. You couldn't log in. So
yeah, that was my problem. I tried game, and then I got it in my basket. I went to check out, and it was like, check out, log in or sign in as guest. I was like, well, knowing that there was a reasonable chance I was going to cancel this order anyway, I was like, I don't want to do this as a guest because that seems like it's going to be hassle. And it wouldn't let me log in. So I went, all right, screw it, not bothering.
I did it as a guest. I didn't get a confirmation email for about 2 days, but finally did, and I found my own way to link the order to my account. But Amazon went live in the morning, and they seemed to go quite well.
9 a.m. They had a problem if you're doing it on because I was out for the day, and I was up ready. I was standing at a bus stop, going, right, I want to get my pre-order on Amazon. So 9 a.m. didn't go up till about 3 or 4 minutes past, but sure, whatever. On the mobile, if you could search for PlayStation 5, it showed you, okay, here's the PlayStation 5. Click on it; it will just take you back to Amazon homepage. I was like, oh, it's a nightmare. So you had to go on a browser and then force it into desktop mode. Otherwise, you would just keep getting booted back to the homepage. And then I had my own issues where when I did get my pre-order through, they decided they didn't like my card for no reason. There's obviously Amazon doesn't charge, straight away anyway. They do it when they dispatch. But even if they had a charge now, there was money in the account that would have covered it, so they shouldn't have declined it for that anyway. It was just, for whatever reason, they were just like, no, your details don't match your bank's declining it. So I spent 2 days chasing with Amazon support, 6-7 different people. The only thing they do, remove the card, re-add it, make sure your billing address is the same. Oh, try a different card. It's this card. Just make it work. And they're like, well, it's your bank's fault. So contact your bank. All right, I'll contact my bank. Oh, we have no record of Amazon even trying to make any transaction here. There's no record of this on our end whatsoever. Speak to Amazon. God damn it. Eventually, it just settled after like 4 days, but it was a mess because after 5 days, they just cancelled the order. So it was a bit touch and go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, unfortunately, obviously, like Sony probably didn't help the matter, but I think the thing is that like there's, in situations like this where it's all going to be a massive digital rush to go and pre-order things, because I mean, again, especially in the pandemic, it's not like people are going to be running down to the high street store to actually go and pre-order in store as well. That people just didn't anticipate how much traffic there was going to be.
This is the first console launch like this as well, because I mean,
yeah,
the Switch is its own beast, but before that, you're looking 2013, I think, were the last consoles.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, obviously there was still a huge digital marketplace presence at that point, but people would still go and queue outside a game or a Walmart, for when they opened at 6, 7, 8 a.m. to be the first in line, and they would queue up like that overnight, and that was part of the experience. And because of that, then the digital sites could handle their traffic better because not everyone was trying to get on at once. So
I saw a tweet of this guy who says, "I don't trust websites," and had gone and camped outside of a game at midnight.
Credit to him.
I think there's also an element of with how late the prices and pre-orders have been put in place this time. That there's a sense of urgency now, whereas obviously in previous generations, usually it's announced at E3, which is in May
June.
Or June. Yeah. So it's usually announced then, and pre-orders, even if pre-orders start in early September, so similar to now, you've got that time to get ready for it as a consumer as well.
And retailers as well. At least, I'm sure we'll talk about Xbox more in a minute, but they had at least a bit of time to prepare. Whereas on retailers' end for Sony, it was, hey, you can start selling tomorrow, by the way. And they're like, wait, what?
I do wonder if maybe more actual people got PS5s because the scalpers and bots weren't necessarily ready.
I don't know. It might have made a difference. I don't know how bad the bots were with the Xboxes because I think sites, while they crashed, seemed to be better prepared to, game, you had a queue, log into your account. I think sites seemed better prepared to know what to do to manage the traffic, even if it still ultimately didn't work, because no matter what, they underestimate how many people are trying. But I think they did
those
try.
Bots bought 1Xs. So
seemingly, at least I hope it was bots.
No, I think it was stupid people.
I mean, in their defense,
people, I mean, obviously you made the mistake earlier in the episode.
It's easy to make the mistake. I think it's
saying the 1-1. Yeah.
In their defense, on Amazon, before the consoles went live, because if you search like a week before, they had a page with the information on it, be like, pre-order coming soon. But in the 24 hours before release, they actually take that page down. And then put up a whole fresh page when it goes live. And if you search just Xbox Series X while that page was down, it would show you an Xbox One X as just, here's your first result. So if you search that, I think they were supposed to go live at 8 a.m. They didn't actually go up till about 10 past. If you searched in that first 10 minutes for Xbox Series X, it would show up and you go, oh, that must be it. It's supposed to be live. That's there. I can see why people might have made that mistake. I mean, I wasn't getting up early that day. I was getting my girlfriend to do it, and she's reasonably tech aware, but not as much. She doesn't pay attention in the same way. So the night before, I was like, "Look, I know you're going to say, you know what you're doing. It's fine, but I'm just being safe. This is what it looks like. This is the store page. Do not buy this one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but there's probably a lot of parents out there buying it for Christmas presents that didn't have
Yeah.
that knowledge.
It is a small increase, though, right? Like the number looks way worse than it actually.
It was 747%, but so few were selling before that's
Yeah.
a tiny increase in proportion. It didn't even crack into the top 50 Xbox accessories sold, like in terms of hardware. There were more people buying the controller, add-ons, the keyboard things that you can pop into the bottom of your controller. More people bought those still on that day than accidentally bought a One X.
So, yeah, I think we've probably covered the chaos. I think as smug as Microsoft Twitter was the day of the PlayStation pre-order launch, with that little sly dig of it'll be fine.
I think they probably still get to be smug though, don't they? Because it wasn't their fault when retailers couldn't handle it when they gave them warning. They can kind of clean their hands of it. Like, well, you could have done better.
I think to a lesser extent, it wasn't Sony's either. I mean, obviously Sony didn't help it, but
I think Sony's was the poor communication. You can quite clearly blame on them.
I would say Sony clearly thinks it's their fault because
they apologized. Yeah.
Whereas, with Xbox, as you say, they can wash their hands of it and they can say, it wasn't us. Like, it was shoddy servers.
The only one they have to take responsibility for was where in the US the Microsoft store crashed as well. They obviously have to take responsibility for that one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the ridiculous thing. Like, if Microsoft and Amazon, like Amazon, who literally own every single server on the internet, pretty much.
Well, between the two of them, you got all Amazon servers, and then you've got Netflix's Azure servers.
Yeah.
Microsoft's obviously.
Netflix. But yeah, I mean, between the two of them, like, if they don't have the server strength to deal with that number of customers, then nobody stands the chance of having the server strength to deal with that many customers. So, like, yeah, I think Sony is certainly partly to blame for their efforts or lack of, but I don't think either company really needs to feel too worried about it. They both sold out from the looks of it, except for the Series S, which there's still a few around.
Still some Series S starting around, yeah.
Yeah, I know some people have said, that proves that they're selling really badly, and I think they're just aimed at very different audiences. I think, as a rule, anyone who was getting up at 8 a.m. to pre-order the new console immediately
wants the big boy.
They're the hardcore fans who want the big one. The S is aimed at people who want the budget-friendly options, parents who buy their kids a Christmas present, things like that.
Grandparents.
It's a more casual option in that sense.
It's probably it's probably good for Microsoft that it hasn't sold out, because now it's available for random parent purchase over the Christmas period.
I mean, something that me and James discussed was the potential that actually maybe, because on paper, it looks like the Series S and the One X are comparable in power. They're not, because obviously teraflops don't really mean anything. But like on paper, the two of them have similar processing power. They have similar output. They're both 1440p that upscale to 4K. That maybe some people are waiting for the reviews for the Series S and see if it's actually worth it. Because if the reviews come out and they're like, and it's a bit like, then if you've already got a PS4 Pro or you've already got a One X, you might as well hold on until there are some more killer games, because that's obviously the big thing for Xbox. They've got some great third-party stuff, but realistically, there's no Halo, there's no brand new Forza. Yes, there's an upgrade to Horizon.
There is nothing at launch.
There is nothing
exclusive.
at launch that is exclusive that is going to really stretch that. Show off the Series X. So you may as well wait and see what the reviews are like for the Series S, and then if they're really good, then you go and get one. Or you wait
I think it's
until
pretty worth
Halo comes
noting
out.
that the people who are upgrading to the Series S probably aren't coming from the One X or the PS4 Pro. They're probably coming from base consoles. And for them, that will be a pretty sizable leap up for sure. Like, there's no doubt in my mind about that.
Because although the output on paper is similar to the Series X, to the One X, the Series S is going to be a significantly more efficient console. You are going to experience some more of the bells and whistles. Obviously, load times in particular are going to be much better.
They'll actually be faster on the S than they will on the X, by nature of the fact that it's a smaller hard drive. It's the same speed. It's the exact same SSD. In terms of specs, just smaller. And because of that, there's less for it to glance at to read, and it will load faster. That's just a fact. Obviously, Microsoft aren't pushing that because they don't want to diminish their main system, but that's the reality of it.
I do wonder if Microsoft are going to start, maybe going to think about doing smaller memory cards as well, because obviously there aren't any official prices for the memory cards yet, but most people are thinking it's going to be $200.
Myths accidentally leaked a price, I think.
Yeah.
They did. It was £159. And then I believe someone else has leaked a US price. I think it was $220.
Yeah.
Which is what you expect to pay for a 1 terabyte SSD of that speed.
I mean, it is, but obviously if they're making 512s to put into a console, I wonder if they're going to be now tempted to put some 512s out there. Because obviously it depends on how quickly they can get the price down.
Depends on how cost efficient it is. Just in terms of, at 1 terabyte, we can sell at this price. It's efficient. Whereas at half that, maybe the production costs are still similar, and it's not worth it.
So
yeah, true. But I mean, if they could, say, if it's 150, it was 159 for a terabyte.
Yes.
But I mean, if they can get a 512 out for 100,
it's tempting. Yeah.
It's tempting.
Point in perspective, those little Samsung SSDs that lots of people love to use, they're about 130 for 1 terabyte.
And they are slower, aren't they?
Slower than, they're fast, but they're slower than.
Yeah, these new console SSDs on both are stupidly fast. They're like borderline higher than the top end of consumer SSDs.
And Samsung charge 80 quid for a 500 gigabyte.
So 100 seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, if they could get a 512 out for 100, then I think that would at least feel like a suitable price. Of course, the other thing is especially for the digital consoles on both sides, really, they do accept external external hard drives. Obviously, ideally an SSD, not to necessarily to play from, but you can store your games on there. So if you don't want to have to re-download, then you can shift the titles
and I believe you can play the older generation games directly from them. So if you put in a hard drive into the PS5 external, you can still play your PS4 games directly from that. You won't get the benefits of the improved loading times like you will on the system itself, but you can still play them as they were on the PS4.
I mean, they'll still be as fast as if you've got an SSD in your PS4 Pro. So it'll be like, if you get a decent speed external SSD, then it'll be as fast as if you're playing them on your PS4 Pro.
But then, in Microsoft's case, right, if an external SSD is going to cost you 130 per terabyte, why not pay the 20 quid more for?
I mean, there certainly is that. I think the thing is that excuse me, a slower SSD as a storage, not necessarily as something to play it from, but a slower SSD as a storage is going to come down in price quicker. So there'll be a point at possibly as early as middle of next year, maybe late next year, where you'll be able to get a 2 or 3 terabyte SSD significantly cheaper than
you can
buying
already
the Microsoft
get
branded one.
the WD Xbox ones,
Yeah.
where they are huge. You can get a 12 terabyte one for like 200 quid or something like
Is
that.
that the WD Black?
Yeah,
They're not SSDs.
are they not? They market them as SSDs at least.
Oh, maybe they do. Maybe it's a range they do both in.
Maybe, yeah, because I know you can get. I'm learning one here that it's a this one is a it's not even telling me the size here. This is a terabyte one at the minute. It is 150 for the SSD version. That's for the NVMe SSD.
Yeah.
But they do the regular ones, but stupidly large sizes at reasonable prices.
So, but I mean, yeah, there's going to be options. I mean, obviously with Sony, they've gone a different route. They they are going to announce at some point early next year which third-party ones they're happy will perform at a high enough capability.
The problem Sony has is that, as it stands, because of how fast these SSDs are, and Sony's gone even more custom, that the market doesn't have anything fast enough.
Well, no, yeah, because obviously they've not only is Sony's faster than the Xbox One anyway, it's got some really custom, like they've gone full custom on it, so that it's efficient, more efficient on top of being faster. So having a more standard design SSD, like a third-party SSD, they speculate that you'll need something that's potentially 1.5 times faster than the PlayStation 1 itself.
Which
so
borderline doesn't exist in the consumer market right now.
Well, when
it does, will be expensive.
When that Mark Cerny thing was done in March, I think it was. It was their Gamescom event that never happened. Where the specs were announced and what have you. He speculated that it would that there'd be some SSDs on the market by Christmas. But obviously, the big thing that he mentioned was the fact that there's no uniform shape to SSDs at the moment. So obviously, it's going to be a case of third parties actually producing them so that they'll fit in the Sony bus,
which then means they can charge more, so it might as well be licensed anyway.
Well, I think
what shape has Sony gone for the expansion slot?
I think it's shaped like NAC. It looks like a NAC shrunk down. So,
because a lot of NVMe sticks kind of look like a stick of RAM.
Yeah, they do.
Not, but they.
It's the actual port itself. Apparently, it and then the housing round it as well. They're just there's all sorts of random shapes. So I think it's not that bad. It's not like there's thousands of different shapes, but like I think there's like 3 or 4 different shapes, and Sony's gone for one, and they're hoping that certain manufacturers will make sure that they stick to that, because obviously it's a new source of revenue for them. Like if the PlayStation 5 does even remotely as well as the PlayStation 4 does, at some point that's 100 million extra units that might need extra storage in that lifetime. So it's worth it for these SSD producers to actually make sure that there are these particular shapes going out there. So
I mean, I'm sure from Sony's spec list, the expansion port is M2.
I think so, yeah.
It's just whether the bay is a reasonable size, though.
Yeah.
Because I know, like Microsoft have it as like just like it's almost like a memory card style plug-in at the back, and it does stick out a little bit. Whereas I think Sony have done an actual like bay to slide into.
I believe it's the traditional Sony manner of grabbing a screwdriver and opening your box.
Yeah.
Which I don't really have a problem with that because, like, obviously when they first did that with the PlayStation 3, like, especially compared to what Xbox was doing with their hard drives, it
Don't
was
remind me.
actually quite simple. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like it, but at the same time, it felt safe because, sure, I'm having to get a screwdriver and do it, but like, it never felt like you were having to yank it too hard or push it too hard to get it back in or anything like that. But it was properly housed. It felt like it was protected, and obviously it was within the warranty. They designed the console, and it was in the warranty that they said, as long as you don't dick around with any other parts of this, and just take this, just go in through this bay and put a fresh hard drive in, then that's fine. Warranty's fine. We're not going to screw you over on that or anything like that. Just, and that felt great. I remember taking the 60 gig hard drive out of my original PS3 and putting a 500 in. And it was like as simple as it gets.
I did a PS3 drive change.
I never had a PS3 long enough to need one. I was mainly 360 in that generation. I went through a few, although I did have a PS3 as well, but I started with the 360, the core, which, I don't know if you remember, did not come with a hard drive.
Yeah.
And obviously they had their proprietary slap on the top hard drives that were.
Yeah.
But I mean, my hard drive had so many issues. My Xbox in general had so many issues. I could disassemble and reassemble one of those right now from muscle memory. Like the entire thing. My optical drive died, and the only way to fix it was to completely open it up and get the laser moving by hand, and then close it all again. And then it got stuck essentially. So I'd have to do that like every week or so. For like 2 years.
I worked in games retail during that period, and like the amount of issues I had with 360s, like if it wasn't red rings, then it was definitely laser burns. Like the amount of people that come in, you've given me a faulty disc, like it's scratched. It's not, mate. You just like the amount of times I asked, do you have a cat? And they go, yeah. And then that's why this copy of FIFA now has a laser burn, because
you have to make sure it's completely unplugged from the mains before you move it even an inch.
It's like, A, do you have a cat? B, is it in vertical mode? Because if it's vertical and you've got a cat, I'm not I am not going to even contemplate giving you a refund. So, well,
it was that era. That game started their disc repair service.
We had it as well.
That was quite useful, to be fair. I will admit there were times where some discs I definitely didn't treat as well as I should have done. I'm not talking about I knocked over the console and laser burn, just in general, like I'll just, slap them about, whatever. Sure, I'll pay £3 to get 5 discs fixed or whatever it was.
I mean, the thing was that the laser burns you couldn't fix because it was damage that was done underneath the surface. But for scratches on a DVD, it was actually just a machine that used T-cut. It was a specially designed CD player basically that had little buffers on it. But the liquid that we used to clean things, it was just T-cut that you'd use if you had a scratch on your car. So if you went and got some T-cut,
makes sense,
just gently rubbed it, then it would have sorted your discs out. So,
I mean, it worked, and so at the end of the day, I never regretted paying for it because it did fix the discs that I did mistreat. So
yeah. Oh, I mean, we got them in, and especially with for trade-ins and stuff like that. Like, you could look at 360 discs. I mean, we'd never look at, we'd very rarely look at PlayStation 3 discs because at the time Blu-rays felt like they were bulletproof, and so like you check the 360 disc, and if it looked like it was something that was fixable, because they were always scratched. They're like if someone was trading them in, there was no way that there wasn't some sort of damage on them. But like if it looked fixable, trade it in.
If I recall, before that they just refused to take it, right?
Yeah. I mean, with 360s got that bad that for trade-ins it got to a point where there was an hour-long process where you'd bring it in and we'd have to set it up and plug it into a TV in the back. So it would be drop it off, come back in an hour once we've done all the checks. Once we've put a game in, we've actually made sure and played it, so that we make sure that it isn't knackered. And then, because obviously it could have had a quick fix. Someone could have done the old put a blanket round it thing, and warmed it up enough so the solder had accidentally gone back to where it was supposed to, and then so we'd have to turn the console on for long enough to actually make sure that it wasn't knackered. So it was, and then of course when they released the Elite model, that was it? No, it wasn't the Elite. It was the Slim. That wasn't really any smaller. There
wasn't Elite. I remember there was a 360 Elite.
The Elite was the black one because it came with a larger hard drive and it was black. And then other than that, it was exactly the same as a normal 360. The Slim was the one that they boasted no red ring issues anymore because they'd taken the red LEDs out. Right. That was it. I mean, there was a new processor in there. It was a more efficient processor, but all of the internals other than that were still as prone to breaking as the previous ones. They'd just taken the red LEDs out.
And ultimately, Microsoft are still dealing with this. I don't think from a consumer point of view, I don't think most people are still going, oh, but what if it breaks again? Because I think, the Xbox Ones and that whole series were pretty reliable. I think they've proven that it was just a piece of bad design. It was a one-off. It happens.
Because the original Xbox was incredible build quality as well. It was just
so
a console
durable.
that there was it never felt like it was fully utilized.
But it's still it's clearly informing their design of the X with the vertical airflow, because it very much wants to be vertical. They want you to have it vertically just because that's how it's designed with the airflow. And I think that's still because of what their reputation was with the 360. It's still influencing them.
Both of these consoles are vertical consoles.
They are, although the PS5 has a clip-on stand that you can put it sideways.
Well, doesn't it stand just to have different slots depending on?
The stand is for either position.
Oh, is it?
So it slots in for vertical, and then it sits on it for horizontal.
I think it's curved in a manner that.
Yeah. It's all. You see, the thing is that the PlayStation, obviously, it's such an interesting design choice. Some will like it, some don't. I quite like it. That it's almost a shame that it can't be wireless to the telly, because if you could get it in the middle of the room, like on your coffee table, rather than having to use an HDMI port to plug it into your telly,
just buy a really long HDMI cable and run it under your carpet.
Never step over it.
Yeah, never step over it. Yeah, but yeah, it's but obviously it's a massive unit. But then.
Yeah, I thought the Series X was big until I saw the dimensions of the PS5, and it's another 20-30% bigger. It's huge.
Yeah, although I think obviously the PS5 has a slightly more standard format to it. Even with all the waviness to it, it's still that traditional kind of thickness-ish. So it's still something you could probably see fitting into the space next to a telly, like with mine where my PlayStation 4 is. There is enough space there that I could get a PS5 in that particular space. I think I'd struggle to get a Series X.
Definitely, if you wanted to leave any space for ventilation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Series X is not as deep, so in theory,
I wonder if that's informed the PlayStation design. Because it's got the big fins, knowing how prone people are to shove consoles into whatever space will fit them, it forces more ventilation. Because you've got
because it might
plastic clearing the.
Because those big fins are essentially making the console artificially large. They probably don't need that much space. But as you say, because people are prone to just like stuffing it in the tiniest little space that they can possibly find for it, then this forces a needed amount of space for whatever's actually inside it.
Because it probably would overheat if you force it in the smaller space like that, and then Sony would take the flack for that, regardless of, well, you put it in a terrible spot. But people will go, well, you let me. It's like, I mean,
well, I mean, like obviously, I hear so many people talk about the PlayStation 4's like sounding like jet engines and stuff like that. Mine gets a bit. I've got a Pro. Mine gets a bit loud sometimes, but on the whole, mine is very well ventilated. I need to dust it more regularly, but it is very, very well ventilated, and so mine never gets that loud. There's occasional bits where it's obviously preloading a big thing, and it gets a bit like, but
no, mine is terrible, and it lives in a like right now it's on my desk. Previously, I've had it in just a TV unit with nothing around it. It's so loud. I've had it tell me it shut down from overheating on a not that hot day in that full ventilation. After I've cleaned the dust out of it, it's still like, no, it's just not having it. And that's a big reason why I personally feel the need to upgrade for a next-gen console sooner rather than later. Even though there's not must-have games that are exclusive to it, it's the experience of playing the games on the PS4, the base model that I have, is not enjoyable anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, if you've got the base model, I can understand that. Because I mean, there's going to be certain things like the more pro optimized current games like Ghost of Tsushima or something like that on a PS5 are going to look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, like that. My PS4 base PS4 struggled with that game. It was regularly dipping to 25, 26 frames, like and like 29, 28 frames. Sure, you get away with it, but when you're in the mid 20s, you feel it. And you feel the judder, and it is a shame because it's a gorgeous,
I think
brilliant game.
The biggest issue with frame rates is when it's not steady, though. I mean, like, I think even if it was a case of it went down to 25, but it was a solid 25, eventually your eyes would get used to it. The problem really is, like, obviously if it's still desperately trying to hit 30, and so it's juddering between
it's why I don't like I don't like uncapped frame rates, like, where it's we're aiming for 60, but it's often more between 45 and 50. I'd rather just lock it at 30. Just give me 30 and be stable.
Or even lock it at 45. I mean, I don't see why.
I think it's because of the refresh rates of most screens, so you don't get any you don't get any tearing if you lock it at a multiple of 60. So in this case, 30. You don't get any tearing, so that tends to be why they do that.
Moving on to our final piece of news. Microsoft buys ZeniMax / Bethesda. Yeah.
Didn't really see it come in, but I'm sort of not surprised at the same time.
Yeah, there was no rumors of this. We'd heard Microsoft looking to buy various people over the past year, but...
Well, yeah, because the big one this year been WB Games.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
everyone wanted to buy WB Games, though, so that was kind of not a exclusive to Microsoft sort of situation.
No, but I think it sort of would have made sense for Microsoft. I think with everyone else, it would have been that would be all right. Like, but with Microsoft, it sort of made sense that like that purchase would fit in with what they need.
This purchase has boosted their studios by 8. Yep. They now have 8 more studios, and has given them control over some of the most beloved IP in video games.
Definitely,
depending on who you are. I'd say iconic more than beloved. I mean, like,
people love this IP.
Well, yeah.
People love Doom. People love Fallout.
There's no arguing that, whether you love Doom games or not, that the Doom Slayer or the Doom Guy, depending on which version you're looking at, is one of the most iconic gaming mascots ever. He's up there with Mario.
I mean, they have now Microsoft has both iconic video game Space Marines.
Yeah,
Master Chief and Doom Guy.
Crossover.
Yeah, I mean that's something that
Quake
obviously potentially down the line there is a Master Chief versus Doom Guy game.
Just throw Master Chief in Quake Champions.
Yeah, that'll happen. I mean, the other thing is obviously they've got the team, they've got the Doom and Wolfenstein team now to eventually take over from Halo, because when Halo Infinite probably bombs because it looks like it's in hell, then they've now got an absolutely top quality FPS team to take over.
Ready and waiting, yeah. And I think it's worth remembering as well. I think some of there's overlooked in a lot of the conversation that's been going on this week is id Tech, the engine that id developed, is one of the single most scalable engines in the world. Recently they had someone push Doom to 1,000 FPS, Doom Eternal to 1,000 FPS on that engine. You can. It's why you can port all of their games to the Switch so reasonably successfully, and without too much difficulty, because that engine just scales magnificently. And I think, especially going into this new gen where Microsoft want to keep the Series S alive as long as possible, having games on that, well, you'll be able to run games on that Series S from id Tech for as long as you want. You can guarantee it.
And they have a Morrowind engine.
That's what everyone wants.
Although Bethesda Softworks has actually announced that they are finally upgrading their
they claim this every game.
No.
I mean, it's a new engine.
Did you not read the direct quote from Todd?
No.
This is our biggest change to the engine since Oblivion.
Still at its core,
just fire Todd. I know they're keeping him.
I can tell you now the exact day that he goes. 5 years. 5 years from the day of that acquisition, he's gone.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with BioWare when EA acquired them. 5 years to the day, the two co-founders, they were gone. They tend to keep them in place because they want that continuity to make it feel like, hey, it's still the same company you know and love. And Todd's obviously quite a known personality. He's the public face. It's good for them to have him still there and promote, hey, no, this is a good thing. And then in 5 years, well, you know what, I'm moving on. It's been, at that point, it'll have been close to 30 years for him with Bethesda. So no one will even question it. But yeah, mark your calendars.
I still think Microsoft might want to carry on treating Bethesda as a publisher as opposed to...
I think in some ways they are, because if you read the official statements, I think it was the Pete Hines one that said Bethesda are continuing to publish their own games, which and Microsoft said they're going to leave them, semi-autonomously to do what they're doing.
I saw that tweet yesterday that it's going to be a semi-independent.
So we'll see. I mean, the actual publication line's interesting, though, isn't it? Because it means do they choose what platforms they're publishing on?
I think the only thing they don't have a say in is Game Pass day and date.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Game Pass day and date.
That's already confirmed.
Yeah.
No question. But I think the thing is that the big games in particular, as much as I can't stand mainline Bethesda games, like actual Bethesda, not id games, but
yes, there's a difference between Bethesda GameWorks and Bethesda Softworks in this case, one being the publisher, one being the actual developer.
The publisher publishes some of my favorite games and has some of my favorite studios.
The developer makes cardboard cutouts and gets fans to finish the game off with mods, but they're popular enough that I think it's worth putting them on the PlayStation units. A, to get some extra revenue, but B, to point out yet again the value of Game Pass, that you're paying $70 over here, or you can get it day and date as part of your subscription model over here. So for Microsoft, I think in the same way that they've done with Minecraft, it makes perfect sense for certain titles.
And those legacy, big names, your Elder Scrolls, your Fallouts, Doom.
Yeah,
I can still see maybe 6 months exclusivity. Get it on Game Pass right now. 6 months later, PS5, because there's too many. There's the hard truth is at least for the first few years, there are going to be more PS5 units than Xbox Series either combined.
Probably.
That's almost a given. And I think that's too much revenue for them to pass up, especially if you look at Skyrim sold over 7 million copies in its first week. Over its first 5 years, over 11 million copies. It's too much.
We
it's a question of how many they can actually drag over, because going back to the 360 failure rate thing, I worked in games retail for the entire life of the 360. And I would say my 360 customers on average had at least 2 360s. Every single one of them. I knew people that were on 9 360s.
Personal experience, I had 2.
So I don't think that the Xbox One has actually done as bad as people think it's done. I think it's actually done accurate.
In comparison to the 360, no. In comparison to the PS4, that's a different question.
I think that's the thing. I think that the 360 numbers of the people, obviously Microsoft don't release numbers, but it's around 85 million. I think that's the false idea of what a true Microsoft install base is, or a true Xbox install base of unique owners. So I think potentially the 50 million-ish Xbox One sales is actually quite accurate to what Xbox are going to get. So they need to hit that 50 and then try and get some extra on top of it. That's going to be the hard one this time. But then
if we consider Game Pass is now for platform, their install base is now also
PCs,
every Android phone,
and already the rate that Game Pass going, because they've released some numbers this week. The last we heard was, I think,
10 million.
10 million. That was back in May.
I think it's 15 now, isn't it?
It's 15 now. And if you think, depending on which package you get, because obviously there's PC, which is on its own, that's a bit cheaper. Then you've got just Xbox, and then you've got Ultimate. If you think that people are, if you take the average is just Xbox, I think that's what, $12 a month.
Yeah.
And times that by 15 million every month already. That's.
I think we worked it out. If they can hit 50 million users across all formats, then it's roughly $9 billion a year that they'll be bringing in.
And I don't think that's unfeasible.
It's not unfeasible. I think it's reachable. But obviously, the more studios they buy, the more that money gets thinner on the ground.
Which is why they want to put them on the PS5 as well, right? To get make up some of that extra difference.
Because obviously we'll never see something like Halo on the PS5, but now you've bought Doom, you can certainly do something like a skin in Doom on the Xbox systems. You might be able to get Master Chief skin for online or something like that, to make it a little bit more. Or you could have a few Halo weapons or Gears of War weapons or stuff like that. Still release it on the PS5 as a base version, essentially, with no special features, but people will buy it, and it's going to make, even if it only sells an extra 2 million copies.
Yeah, but the difference is, I don't think games like Starfield will necessarily come to the PS5, because even though that's, they could market it so easily as, it's the next, Fallout Skyrim game, but instead you say, well, if you want it, come to Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, Starfield's not until the generation after this one anyway.
You market exclusive to Game Pass, right? So play it on your phone, play it on your PC, play it on your Xbox. You just can't play it on PS5.
Play it on your PS1. Or no, sorry, Morrowind was PS2, wasn't it? So
no, Morrowind was an Xbox exclusive.
It was just Xbox, yeah.
Oh, so play it on your original Xbox when Starfield comes out, because obviously it's still going to be using the Morrowind engine. Play it on your original Xbox. That would reverse backwards compatibility, forwards compatible with that's what they'll be announcing next after they've.
Two interesting notes though. Microsoft is now publishing just as many PS5 next-gen exclusive games as Sony themselves. And,
between Tokyo Ghostwire and
Deathloop.
Deathloop, yeah.
Although Tokyo Ghostwire is like 2022, so it's a bit tenuous.
Yeah, we don't know. And they have confirmed they are honouring the year exclusivity. I mean, they didn't say year exclusivity, but it's going to be a year exclusivity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And Microsoft now own Fallout. They also own In Exile and Obsidian. Two companies that could probably do a better job of that IP than Bethesda.
I mean, one of them already has.
Did you see Obsidian's tweet? Or
the shrug.
Yeah,
yeah.
So yeah,
because I mean, original Fallout is based off of Wasteland, which In Exile has been making Wasteland games, but Fallout is the much more popular IP. It hit much bigger. Doubt. So instead of Wasteland 4, have In Exile make a traditional Fallout.
Just let them make Wasteland 4 and then slap the Fallout name on it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Wasteland 4, Fallout.
Yeah.
Might as well. Yeah. I think what we haven't mentioned is that they paid a lot for this, $7.5 billion. And to put that in perspective of how much that is, when Disney bought Star Wars, that was $4 billion.
Star Wars, the whole of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, when they bought all of Marvel, that was only $2 billion. So all of Lucasfilm and all of Marvel cost Disney less than this deal cost Microsoft, which is why I think when people go, oh, Sony will respond, they'll buy out, whatever. Sony do not have the capital to do this.
No. I mean, Sony sort of do, but PlayStation don't.
PlayStation definitely. I mean, but as a comparison,
Sony themselves don't really.
Sony are worth in total about 70 to 75 billion in total. Microsoft are worth over $1 trillion. Like it's not even close.
That's the thing that has been evident in the last 2 years is that Microsoft, the parent company, have finally realised that Xbox isn't just some stupid little thing that they have going on in a.
It's valuable.
It's valuable, and even the CEO of Microsoft itself tweeted yesterday, "Yes, we'll possibly buy some more game studios if we feel like it, if it makes sense." So the fact that he is getting in there and actually talking about things publicly. Obviously, Phil Spencer has done incredible work for Microsoft itself. Made it feel more human than it's ever felt. I think it always, for me, had that aspect of it being the big bad.
It was a bit corporate, wasn't it?
It was very corporate. It was very much like, "Hi, I'm Microsoft, and let's make this gaming PC console thing, and it's going to be better than yours." Yeah,
no, Phil Spencer's a wonderful personality, and he does bring a lot to it. He knows what his audience wants. He knows how to talk to people on our level. Essentially, he doesn't. I mean, I'm sure he bullshits a little bit. That's part of the job. But at the same time, he apologized for the 360 problems, which you don't have to do.
He apologized for the Xbox One problems because he was brought in after the launch of the Xbox One.
He was, which. I'm not surprised. They needed a PR change after that, and I think to get to this stage now, I think he came in a year or two after the launch. To get to this stage now at the new consoles, where it's definitively his era of Microsoft or his era of Xbox, it's in a much better place, especially as consumers. It's in a great place.
I think the big thing with him is that, like, and it obviously it sounds a bit cliched, but he is a gamer, whereas the previous bosses of Xbox have always felt like they are someone who's been installed by Microsoft to run a tech division, and like obviously it is a business, but run it strictly as a business. Whereas like Phil Spencer plays games. He doesn't just play Microsoft games as well. He obviously has a PlayStation. He obviously has a Switch. Like he likes games.
Of course he does. Don't we all? Like, you know, it's the same thing with, you know, Marvel versus DC. It's like people just like both. It's not that uncommon.
Yeah.
It's even the people who, you know, create these stories. They want to see what the other ones are doing. They're interested in the medium, and it's the same here with games. So, you know, of course he wants to play Ghost of Tsushima, for example. You know, it's a good looking game. Why wouldn't he?
Exactly, but I think it's that honesty, and it's that feeling that he is a real person, as opposed to it just being some corporate guy, which is what Xbox has felt like in the past.
I also wonder if the success of Office 365 and software as service in the computer software space has given them the idea and thought for Game Pass. So through experience, Microsoft, and same with Google, right? Because primarily a software company, not a game manufacturer, that they have the thought and the imagination to create something like Game Pass in a way that Sony doesn't. Sony is a hardware electronics manufacturer.
Bound by tradition. I mean, look at everything of how this, you know, pre-console launch has gone. Sony has done everything by the traditional book. Here's your powerful hardware. Here's your exclusive games. You know, they've not done anything wrong, and some of it has been exciting, but it's been very much the standard format. Whereas Xbox have gone about this in a very different way, and I hope it works for them.
I mean, I think the thing is that, like, I think it probably is going to work, but I also think it's probably going to work for Sony as well. That now all three major games console parties are playing their own game, which means that it's only beneficial for us because there are three well-defined different markets.
Yeah, because we've long spoke about, you know, how Nintendo, you don't even compare them with the others because they're so just off on their own thing, right? And I think that's the difference here, where maybe by this time, you know, next generation, we'll kind of be in that position with Microsoft as well, where we're not really directly comparing it to Sony in the same way that we do now, because they're just off doing their thing, and that's probably a good thing overall.
Nintendo does also have a console out in November.
A Game & Watch.
A little Game & Watch.
Yeah.
And probably has an actual new console out by end of fiscal year, so March, because the chances are that the Switch 2 or Switch Pro or Switch XL or whatever the hell it's going to be called is out by then, with a 4K output. So
on that note, and keeping it pacey, what have you all been playing?
You can go first, mate.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I just last night started playing BPM, Bullets Per Minute, which is a roguelike game, structurally very similar to Binding of Isaac. You know, procedurally generated levels, dungeon, go down levels. You know, gets harder as you go down. But the mechanics are crossed with Enter the Gungeon, which, if you don't know, is another roguelike, but it's where you move on the beat.
Yeah,
and everything, you know, every attack, every movement is all done in time with the music. So it does that here. Not the movement, but all your shooting, your reloading has to be done on the beat. And then the shooting is very much old school, like Quake style FPS to go with it. It's a lot of fun. I'm just scratching the surface right now. You know, give me a week and I'll have beaten some of the bosses maybe, but it's a really interesting little game. I think it just came out maybe 2 weeks ago. It's on. I know Steam and GOG have it. I think they're planning on launching on consoles next year. They've said. So keep an eye on it when it does. But if you're interested in those sorts of games, which I unfortunately really am, roguelikes get their hooks into me, and I can spend too many hundreds of hours in them that I probably don't need to, even though there's nothing to it. It's the same loop over and over. There's no story. I just the core gameplay of right, I died. Damn it, just try again. Just start over. It's so just one more run. It's such a compelling system that it gets its hooks in me.
Death Cells and Slay the Spire are the last two roguelikes I really got into.
Slay the Spire, the one that I've put about 500 hours into is Rogue Legacy, which, oh boy, that and across Binding of Isaac and then Afterbirth, Rebirth, whatever the 3D remake was as well. I've probably put 700 hours in between those two.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's like I say, I'll play it. I'll be there at night. I'll be like, oh, I'll do one more run before bed. It'll be like, I'll somehow do good. I'll get a 40-minute run in, and I'll be like, one more run. And then it was even worse once they brought it to the Switch, because I can just sit in bed and play it. That was dangerous.
Yeah.
I've been playing Super Mario Galaxy as part of 3D All Stars, and I know I'm probably going to end up tempting you to.
It's so annoying because we've just been praising Microsoft for being really pro-consumer. This is one of the least consumer-friendly things Nintendo has done, and they do some pretty bad things when it comes to consumers. Just releasing this for 6 months, even as a digital product, is just clearly
it's weird.
It's a way of artificially boosting their financial year, especially the second half. They clearly just need this cash injection, and I hate that it's working on me. I hate that I want to buy it, and I'm trying to hold off till March, when inevitably they'll throw it in a sale for to pick up any last minute people who haven't got it yet.
The event they announced it, I remember watching it, messaging Matt instantly saying, what the hell is Nintendo smoking? And then went and pre-ordered it all. It just
sounds about right.
It's a great game, though. I've never played it before. And I love Odyssey. By the end of this generation, I think Mario Odyssey will be my favourite game.
I've still got a few things that I want to play, but as of right now, I agree with that.
And Galaxy is Mario. It's good. Great level design.
I've played a lot of the 2D Marios. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But Odyssey was my first 3D Mario. I'd never really kind of delved into that side of it. And now I'm like, I loved it so much. Like I said, this might be my game of the generation. I'm like, I really should play the others. Really should.
64 has aged. And because it is a direct port with no real quality of life improvements, it's starting
around the edges.
Yeah. It's still great design and better than a lot of stuff from a similar era. But
probably better than any of the stuff from a similar area. Really.
Yeah, but it's still an N64 game.
A launch N64 game at that.
Yeah. While I've not played Sunshine yet. I have on GameCube, but I've not played it on this collection yet.
Actually, hasn't aged that badly.
I imagine it's held up. 64 is held up. It's just some of the controls are a little...
It's the same when you play any game from back then, isn't it? Yeah. I find there are a lot of games that I can play from even as early as 99, or as late as 99 in this context. If I played it back then, I can just snap into it, muscle memory. It'll be no problem whatsoever. I can still love it. If you give me a game from but released in the same month that I never played, I've got no chance. It's borderline impossible.
I mean, one of the big things obviously is camera from that era. Because for a lot of them you couldn't move the camera because obviously the 64 only had the one analog stick, and the PlayStation later on had two, but original PlayStations had the controller that didn't have analog sticks. So there's a lot of games where you've got no camera control, which seems so alien to us now that in a 3D looking game, you don't have the ability to actually change your view as freely as you do now. So like it's in that weird kind of dead zone of gaming, like a twilight zone almost, between the 2D era and a true 3D era of the PS2 and onwards. When obviously having 2 analog sticks was the standard. So like it's a strange era. I think obviously that's one of the reasons that say some of the remakes, like the Resident Evil remakes, have done so well, is because you go back and try and play the original ones, and they're so alien to us now that they, as good as they might be, they just feel wrong. Where so like there's perfect justification for remakes. I surprise have just been playing Gran Turismo. So I just, as I discussed in a couple of previous episodes, I had essentially 3 weeks off from Gran Turismo because I had a fairly weak week followed by a very bad week, and then a week where the races were just not going to suit me at all, so I didn't race at all. And then last week it really suited me. So there was just the right combination of track and car. Got plenty of pole positions. Got a few wins. I actually got too fast for myself at one point. My qualifying time for that particular race, because it's essentially because it's completely online. So I got myself into some of the higher lobbies by the end of last week, and I just did. I
couldn't stand up to them.
Well, I could race with them, I could keep up with them, but the problem was that I'm not a hot lap guy, so although I'm fairly fast, my qualifying time, if I accidentally get too fast, I'm never going to get pole positions. So sometimes with Gran Turismo, it's a case of you get to a certain point where you've hit a sweet spot where for your lobby ranking, you're going to get pole positions, second places, that sort of stuff, and then you're easily in the fight for the race for the race win. If you accidentally then even knock a tenth off your qualifying time, you might accidentally get into a higher lobby, and instead of being first, second, or third in the qualifying, you're suddenly now 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in qualifying, just because you've got that ever so slightly faster lap time, which is great. Obviously, it gives you more challenges to go for. But I'm only using a controller, so I'm quite often getting into races where 99% of the people are going to be using racing rigs, and I'm facing them using a controller, which is not as accurate, is going to be harder, especially with certain race combinations. So
I'm surprised they don't separate those lobbies in the same way like like Call of Duty just went cross-platform this last year. And if you play on PC like I did, usually I don't because the player base isn't there, but I did this year because I thought, crossplay. But I wanted to play with a controller because that's how I like to play Call of Duty, because it's how I grew up playing it. It will only put you in lobbies with other people with controllers, on whatever platform. And I'm surprised they don't do that on Gran Turismo, where they're just like, okay, we can separate it quite easily.
The thing is, in theory, if you're an absolute freak, in a race where there's no tyre wear, you can get the same lap times out of a controller as you can with a racing rig. Like one of the YouTubers I watch on a regular basis, he did a head-to-head with himself, where he did a 10-lap time trial, basically, with exactly the same car, in a car that he's very comfortable with, one of his favorite cars, in one of his favorite tracks, and the controller, and with no tyre wear, the controller and his racing rig got, I think they crossed the line within a second of each other after a 10-lap race. So like nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas when tire damage was on, that's when the racing rig has the true benefits. But obviously, again, he is a bit of a freak in that, like, he's getting really good racing rig times and he's able to manage it with his controller. Not everyone can do that. I'm getting close to some really, really good times with my controller, but I think I'm probably towards my limits anyway. Again, like even with a rig, I'm not a hot lap expert. I'm a good racer though. So where I do benefit is when I get into a race itself, even if I qualify 4th, 5th, 6th, sometimes if the race is long enough or it's the right combination, I will be able to win that race because I'm a better racer than some of the people that I'm in there, even if they've got racing wheels and stuff. I had one last week, actually. It was a guy who quite obviously is a fairly high-ranking driver who was using his second account, because most of the high rankers have 2 accounts. So they have a dick about one and they have a serious one. And the dick about one is quite often for practice and keeping the skills sharp and stuff. When because Gran Turismo has official FIA races, because they are actually part of the FIA. So like with Formula One and World Rally Championship and stuff like that, they are like a literal esport within FIA. So the top drivers, when there isn't an FIA race, will do the daily races, but they'll do it on their second account. And I beat him clean as well, and he was not happy with it because he gave me shit in the lobby afterwards for beating him. He qualified first, and he qualified over half a second faster than my qualification time as well. But I beat him clean. It took the entire race to do it. But I beat him clean. I just, and yeah, he was not happy afterwards, and it's my second.
I think on that victory note from you, Matt, we'll call it a day.
I think we will. Yeah, that was a good chat.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Connor.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's Tokyo Game Show this week, so
yes,
we might have some more sneaky treats, like potentially a snake that may or may not be solid, and his ghostly friends in a silent hill. So if anything of significance happens, we might talk about that next week.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then we won't. In the meantime, have a good day, everyone. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
See you.